Namaste and good morning to one and all here. Themes and trends in dance research today. Dance research today is an umbrella term. More importantly, it is a very broad umbrella that has many facets that makes it such a brilliant diamond amongst academic disciplines. Many of the areas that are today being covered under the rubric of dance studies include the following areas: dance history, dance theory, dance ethno-choreology and dance science. The last being possibly the newest sub-discipline which looks at the scientific study of dance and dancers as well as the practical application of scientific principles to dance. The term ethno-choreology includes what used to be once called dance ethnography and dance anthropology. This word is a relatively recent one and reflects the attempt to apply academic thought as to why people dance and what it means. This is how it goes beyond what early studies in this discipline amounted to, just the study or the cataloging of the external forms of dances, its moves, music and costume in various parts of the world, but the attempt to come to grips with dance as existing within the social events of a given community as well as within the cultural history of a community. It is important for Indian scholars in particularly that dance is not just a static representation of a single history, not just a repository of meaning, but equally is it a producer of meaning each time it is produced, not just a living mirror of a culture, but a shaping part of the culture, a power within the culture. It also needs to take in the role of the spectator. Ethnologic dance is native to a particular ethnic group. They are performed by dancers associated with national and cultural groups. Ethnic dances are often so deeply entrenched in meaning that they act as religious rituals designed as hymns of praise to a god or to bring in good fortune in peace or war. While working on such studies, integrity, authenticity and issues of representations become very important. Who is the key informant? How to neutralize an agenda from creeping in? How to cover the community in a 360 degrees so that all POVs are reflected are some of the concerns that the researcher needs to keep in mind. In case these filters are not put in place, there is every likelihood of the study becoming a propaganda and in neat research and the line between the two, one very thin, just as a biography has to be careful of not becoming a hagiography. Many Indian researchers often become just that. Dance theory is the philosophy underpinning contemporary dance, including formal ideologies, aesthetic concepts and technical attributes. It is a fairly new field of study developing largely in the 20th century. Dance theory is a broad term encompassing the origins, styles, genres, footwork, artistic expressions, etc. of dance. It also deals with anatomical movements such as footwork, etc., as well as partner interactions, explores the cumulative, physical, mental, emotional and artistic aspects of dance as a medium of human expression and interaction. In doing so, the various nuances and linkages between the dance genres and styles are analyzed with respect to their social settings and cultures. Three broad categories of dance theory, as you may find them described in universities or dance institutes, are philosophy, choreology and sociology. Semiotics is the study of meaning making, the study of sign processes and meaningful communication, or simply put, the study of signs, symbols and signification. Thus, when we study a dance form that has suffered relocation, restructuring, recontextualization, which is often accompanied by reform, repopulation, regenerating, etc., then the semiotics have to be viewed from a different prism. As this was the case of most of the so-called classical dances of India, the issue is flagged. Nothing reflects it better than the example of Satriya, which is living a double life, the sage life and the Satra life. Important areas of dance research today draw from or interact with the fields of society, politics, economics and livelihoods, history, gender, kinetics, documentation and archiving, pedagogy and dance therapy. It also attempts to bridge the gap between theory, practice, policy and management of dance. Dance research is vital, but it needs to be flexible. In the 19th and 20th century, the most powerful influence on mankind has been the spirit of anti-colonialism and the birth of nationhood. It has generated some of the important writing on dance and the nation. Suzanne Anita Reid's writing on dance and the nation, performance, ritual and politics in Sri Lanka is an example of such writing. Around the globe, dances that originate in village, temple and court rituals have been adopted and transferred to carry secular meanings and serve new national purposes. In stage performances, dance competitions and festivals worldwide, dance has become an emblem of ethnicity and an index of national identity. But what are the backstage stories of those dances chosen to bear such meanings, and what have been the consciences for their communities of origin? In her research, Suzanne A. Reid brings to light the complexity of aesthetic politics in a multifaceted exploration and analysis of Kandyan dance in Sri Lanka. As the national dance of Sri Lanka, Kandyan dance is identified with the majority Sinhala ethnic group and heavily supported by the state. Derived from the Kohamba Kankariya, an elaborate village ritual performed by the men of the hereditary drummer caste, the dance was adopted by the state as a symbol of traditional Sinhala culture in the post-independence period. When state officials introduced the dance into the school curriculum, it was open to individuals of all castes, and high caste women have emerged as prominent teachers and performers. Reid's evocative account traces the history and consequences of this transition from ritual to stage, situating the dance in relation to post-colonial nationalism and ethnic politics, and emphasizing the voices and perspectives of the hereditary dancers and of women performers. Equally important has been the in-depth looks as the person who dances. Brajesh Banerjee's book on Uday Shankar is an example of this. It was written before writing on Uday Shankar became popular. Then there was Damayanti Joshi's warmly written biography of Madam Menka, her teacher and supporter. Today, writings are available not just on dancers but also promoters. Ashish Mohan Khokhar's biography of Sumitra Charatram is an example in this direction. Some important researchers emerged out of study programs in India. For example, Reena Shah, an American of Indian origin, came to India on a Fulbright program between 2001 and 2003, ostensibly to learn Kathak under Kumudini Lakhya. The training apart, this opportunity gave Reena a chance to research the life and the work of her guru, and an immediately readable book, Movement in Stills, The Dance and the Life of Kumudini Lakhya, was born. Two of Guru Kelucharan Mahapatra's students researched his life and wrote about it. Sharon Lowen wrote The Dancing Phenomena, Kelucharan Mahapatra, and in 2001, Ilyana Sitasritis wrote The Making of a Guru, Kelucharan Mahapatra, His Life and Times. Lowen had come on a Fulbright to study Manipuri dance and stayed on to make India her home. So substantial has been the support that the Fulbright has extended to the issues around dance that to celebrate 60 years of the Fulbright program, the New Zealand chapter actually produced a book, Dancing Fulbrighters, around just those who had benefited from this fellowship in the field of dance. Some of the recent studies of Fulbrights in the field of dance coming to India have included Nicole Cox, who spent her time in India studying the classical Indian dance form of Kathak, focusing specially on Abhinaya, the art of expression and storytelling under the mentorship of Kumudini Lakhya at the Kadam Center for Dance and Music in Ahmedabad. Cox's study was on understanding better the emotional and narrative elements of Abhinaya, and on an anthropological level, a dancer's embodied connection to the content of the dance. This research will be informing Cox's doctoral studies at the University of Illinois at the Urbana-Champaign. Cox, a native Californian, was introduced to Kathak at the Swarthmore and danced with the Courtyard Dancers, a Kathak dance company directed by Associate Professor of Dance Pallabi Chakrabarti. Often Fulbrighters coming from USA to pursue dance research on unusual and novel traditional dances. An example of such a research work is Judy Lynn Murdoch, who researched the folk masked dance drama of Telcham during her Fulbright fellowship in Korea. Professor Parul Shah worked and studied with Professor Mary Alice Brennan of the University of Wisconsin at Madison in USA in 1984-85. During this time, Parul was working with Philip Zarelli as guest choreographer for his plays Urabhangam and Bhagavad Ajukai, with Kovalan Panikar Narayan as guest director. These were part of festivals of India in USA. Parul's interest in Laban prompted her to work in this area. In 1989, Professor Brennan came to India on a Fulbright, and their pioneering work on the movement analysis of Bharatanatyam started. Professor Shah went to UWM for a year in 1992-93. The collaborative research has produced more than 6 papers, a PhD, and a new way of documenting the Indian dance. Arshia Shetty, whose work is on dance as a cultural mime and the issue of state, corporate and media governance. Sometimes quirks of fate determine the direction of the study of dance under a Fulbright. The Fulbright Fellowship's commitment to dance studies is unquestioned. In the 2016-17 cycles, Fulbright has collaborated with the University of Roehampton to present one award to pursue a year-long master's degree program in dance. This is not all. The Selma Jenny Cohen Award, presented by the Selma Jenny Cohen Fund from International Scholarships in Dance, honors the pioneering and seminal contributions of preeminent dance historian Selma Jean Cohen. The Fulbright Association created the fund with a generous gift from Dr. Cohen in 2000 to recognize the importance of her Fulbright exchange experience in Russia and to perpetuate her interests in dance as an international enterprise. Thus, it is not just through direct award of fellowship alone, but also through twice distilled efforts like this in Fulbright supporting enthusiastically dance research. Sometimes quirks of fate determine the direction of research on dance. Take the case of Maimi Iyer, who, armed with a dancer's experience, a doctor's education and a Fulbright scholarship, works towards developing dance medicine as a field and advocate for dancers' health needs on an international level. She used her Fulbright fellowship to research dancers' healthcare issues at the Hospital for Dancers and Musicians, The Hague, Netherlands. She believes that dance is one of the few vocations in which professional capital and personal identity are dependent on the athleticism and aestheticism of the human body. As dancers, artists' body are their instruments and their products, so an injury to the body is more than a matter of health. It impacts career, livelihood, artistic expression and identity. It was this that drove her research. In dance culture, injury and pain are hidden, normalized and even exalted, said Ayer. Most dancers perceive injury as an inevitable part of their career. As a dancer who can no longer pirouette Miami Air chose to face her own setback this way. Finally, we came back to the discipline of hermeneutics and dance. Hermeneutics is the philosophy and methodology of text interpretation. It comes from the tradition of the interpretation of biblical text, wisdom, literature and philosophical text. Hermeneutics was initially applied to the interpretation or exegesis of scripture. One view has it that the word originates from Hermes, the mythological Greek deity whose role is that of messenger of the gods. Besides being mediator between the gods themselves, he is also the mediator between the gods and the humanity. He is also considered the inventor of language and speech. This multiple roles makes Hermes an ideal representative figure for hermeneutics. As Socrates notes, words have the power to reveal or conceal. Thus, promoting the message is omission and commission. The Greek view of language as consisting of signs that could lead to creation of meaning is what hermeneutics is all about. Modern hermeneutics encompasses everything in the interpretative process, including verbal and non-verbal forms of communication, as well as prior aspects that affect communication, such as presuppositions, pre-understandings, the meaning and philosophy of language, and of course semiotics. In the Indian context, even the written text is of two types. One is the literary text, which is what is danced with the communication in the world, but stressed through signs and symbols, and the other text is the performance text like the Natya Shastra or the Abhinadarpanam, which is a record and hence a sanctifier of how it is or should be danced. Scholar and professor Pallabi Chakrabarti, who is herself a dancer and a dance choreographer, uses an experimental approach to analyze the embodied aesthetics of classical Indian dance. This approach is fundamentally different from the dominant Western epistemologies of visual analysis of cognition and perception. She looks at the body in riyaz or dance practice to analyze the integration of mind and body through emotion or pleasure, as explained in the Indian theory of ras. Cultural memory is evoked through bodily practices, which in the context of Kathak is intimately linked to the Hindu narrative of Krishna Lila. Thus, the poetry from Krishna text and the technique from the Natya Shastra combine to create the entire experience of Kathak, and for any hermeneutic study on dance, both will come into play. In a 2012 doctoral dissertation, Aparna Ramaswamy has researched on Natya Yoga, the yoga of Bharatanatyam, claiming that Bharatanatyam embodies the Ashtha Anga principles of yoga as described in the Yoga Sutra by Patanjali. She argues for the practice of Bharatanatyam to be understood as Natya Yoga. A combination of narrative, heuristic and hermeneutic methods is used to describe the phenomenon of dancing. In addition, an arts-based approach is used to depict ras, the emotional experience of Bharatanatyam. The heuristic inquiry based on the experience of dancing provides an embodied reference for the concept of ras. The hermeneutic inquiry draws from texts such as Yoga Sutra and Natya Shastra to provide an understanding of the experience of ras and its relationship to the goal of Ashta Anga Yoga. A video documentation shares the experience of ras to invite an aesthetic understanding of this phenomenon. As Bharatanatyam, as Natya Yoga is a therapeutic, spiritual and transcending experience, this dissertation seeks to reclaim its essence and represent to the dance its ability to contend with energies that transcend itself. Embodied knowledge, that is knowledge found within the body, the dancing, drumming and often music producing body, is the rich untexted text which should be referenced by the scholar as well. In fact, the scholar has to show considerable skill in knowing which text to prioritize for the real picture to be reflected in the research. For instance, in the case of Satriya, there is the literary text and then there is the untexted text of the body language, but there is no performative text, only the filter of collective memories services as the referential performance text. In performance, practitioners reveal and reverence history, philosophy, religion, physiology, biology, science and mathematics. The body does not even realize when and how it begins to reflect and articulate these disciplines, but it does so for sure as it grows in spiritual practice. The matter does not end here. Sometimes the hermeneutics have to unearth a disguised and often invisible text. For instance, subscribing to the Rasadhvani theory, Abhinav Gupta seems to be hinting at language which enriches and adds to our awareness not only by words but by suggestion. This unspoken language of suggestion is like the mystic and subterranean Saraswati which has to join the Sangam to create Ras. As the world shrinks and dances get a global footprint, researchers like Janet O. Shear's work on the global footprint of Bharatanatyam, At Home in the World and Avanthi Madurai's Bharatanatyam as a global dance, some issues in research, training and practice are being conducted. Further, as diasporas start feeling comfortable across borders, studies get conducted between the styles, politics and agendas of dancers across cultures. Universities of Minnesota at Minneapolis, Professor Ananya Chatterjee's research on the two different and iconoclasts dancers, Chandralekha from India and African American dancer and choreographer, Javole Viljo Jolar. What could have been a study of two lives, one India and the other in USA, turned out to be an exciting study on the messages of resistance contained in their choreographies. Work is happening on unusual issues. There are those who are researching on dance as a human right and others who are researching dance and human rights and social justice. In terms of human rights organizations, there appears to be an intimate connections between dance and human rights issues. Such connections appear most frequently in the context of dance being used as a tool for initiating people to violence, as a means of humiliation and as a means of uniting communities in times of hardships. Dance is often employed as a nationalistic propaganda tool, as a means of healing individuals and groups after traumatic events, such as a powerful form of theatrical expression and education by artists, choreographers who have undergone or witnessed gross violations of human rights. Then there are some who work on less ominous them, like researching wedding dances among the Jewish community, and some who are working on Indian cinema, seeing principles of the Natya Shastra in the use in cinema. This module deliberately spanned two parts, since as research scholars you need to know how robust research is done and you also need to know how to keep your mind open. If you just look around, you will see such exciting studies being done in the discipline of dance studies that you too will be compelled to step out of your comfort zone and work on the many interesting areas available to this discipline.